Julian, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you, Simon.
Nice to meet you as well. Well, I'm excited that you're here. I just reaching out to you, I immediately thought, wow, this would be interesting to have a conversation with you, because I think you've been through so much. You've been through a whole lifetime. Well, you've been through so much adversity, and still you've come out with a level of positivity which I found unbelievable. And that's kind of what I wanted to have a chat with you about today.
Sure. And thank you for those comments. Yeah, interesting. I don't see myself that way, but yeah.
Let's go back to when you were younger. What when you wanted to grow up? When you were looking at growing up, what did you want to become?
Racing driver. I did. I mean, from being knee high to a grasshopper, and my father used to push me around the back garden on a little red plastic racing car, and I'd sit there with my feet on the front, the little white steering wheel, and he'd push me around with a broom, and he'd skid the back out, and I'd be doing this around the garden. Honestly, from that day, I always wanted to be a racing driver. It sounds bizarre, but yeah.
How old were you when that was happening?
3.
3? Oh,
3.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking my little Logan's 2. So if I start doing that now, it'll probably.
Yeah. You'll build a rod for your own back, pre-prepared.
So all the way from that, and then did you, as you grew up, did you see racing car drivers? Was there anyone you were interested in? I guess you might have seen Formula One or.
Oh well, I followed racing from an early age. I mean, I used to watch touring cars when they were on TV years ago. I remember actually in 1976 when James Hunt won the World Championship, because it wasn't on live TV. But I remember being excited to wake up the next day on the Sunday to find out what the result was, and then to watch the replay on TV. So yeah, even at that age, I was really into motor racing. And every Saturday, so my parents, when we were at home each Saturday, each weekend, my parents would be out in the garden doing things, or in the garage building new things, because that's what parents did at that age. They built everything. And I sit there with my racing cars in the lounge or on the grass outside and make little tracks. I had all my Corgi and Dinky and Matchbox cars that I'd, play racing. Have my friends around, we'd all get the cars out and play racing. Even from that age, it's never changed. I've still got all those cars actually in the loft. Believe it or not. Yeah, I've probably got about 70 or 80 little old-fashioned cars, yeah.
Wow, that you used to make. You used to make them and play with them outside.
So I didn't make them, I bought them. So the
Okay.
Matchbox and Dinky, the little model cars, you could actually, but I'd drive them, play with them outside. And I also had Lego technical kits. I made cars, turned them into race cars, yeah, all the time.
It's amazing that something so early on can stick with you for all of your life. I think I've only been learning recently, just so many things that happen, below, in those very early years, often just stick with you, good or bad, in fact. But it sounds like something that you just loved, spending your time with your dad.
Completely, yeah, completely. And I think my dad would claim that he's responsible for my love of motor racing because of that, pushing me around the garden. So, yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, son, it was my fault." Yes, it probably was, Pop. Yeah.
And then back then, did you have any intention of obviously loving, just like I did? I used to love football and I tried to play, but I realised pretty early on I was never quite good enough. I couldn't quite get in the school team, so obviously there's a lot of people ahead of me. But back then, I mean, did you make an attempt, or was it even possible for you to make an attempt to try and get into the Formula? I don't know, was it Formula 5s? I'm not too sure. I'm not too up on it, but the getting into maybe the go-kart racing and wherever that all starts.
Didn't have any idea where to start. My parents weren't particularly well off, so working class family. My parents both worked very hard, and I didn't really want for anything when I was young, and it never occurred to me that racing was even accessible, and I don't think it really was to very many people back then. I mean, it was such I won't call it an elite sport, but it kind of was. It was, gentlemen drivers is really where racing came from. So, knowing someone, being in the industry, being in the community somehow, having relatives, friends that knew, would give you a leg up somehow. But I had none of that, so I didn't know where to start, and I never pursued it because I didn't think it was accessible. I didn't think it was even possible. I just used to look at these people that were racing drivers and go, "Oh, I'm in awe of them. I wish I could do that."
Yeah, I'd look at that. I mean, there's so many barriers, isn't there? So many barriers to even practice and try. The availability of a car, availability of a circuit, availability, and then there's a lot of money that would necessarily be involved.
Yeah.
Needing to know the right people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the journey of some of these very famous people that have made it, but I mean, I think I'd look at that and would say that's probably not accessible for the majority of people. It's a hard thing to get into.
It is. And you know, there are very few actual professional racing drivers in the UK. And when I say professional, I mean people who are paid to be racing drivers. A lot of people are sponsored. So if you look at touring cars, even Formula One, I mean, some of the Formula One drivers, they come with sponsorship. They come with people who are funding them to be in those teams. So, it's a very difficult industry, difficult sport to get into. Yeah.
So knowing that, although that was your passion and your love, knowing that wasn't going to be the thing that you were going to really focus on for your professional career, what direction did you take?
I kind of fell into IT, really. So when I was young, going through my O-levels as they were called at the time in my day, not GCSEs, and then A-levels, I did maths and science. And my father always liked the idea of me doing something in accounting, because he always said, we had this conversation last night actually, he said, son, if you're handling somebody else's money, you'll never be short of money yourself. And I thought, well, nice idea, but I can't think of anything more boring. Just, it's not me sitting there playing with numbers all day long. It's a skill, it's a talent, but it wasn't for me. So, and I went for so many interviews at these various accounting firms like Arthur Andersen, as it used to be now, Accenture, Grant Thornton, and various other companies. And there was one time I went for an interview at Grant Thornton in Manchester, and the interviewer at the end, she said, "You don't really want this, do you? This is not you." And I went, "How would you do that? How dare you say that? How can you possibly know that about me?" She was spot on. And you can't lie, you can't betray what's really going on for you. So that was a lesson I learned early on.
How do you think she knew? Like, that's an interesting question for someone to ask you in the interview. Maybe it was a test, I don't know, but maybe she could see it somehow.
Well, she could see it, I think, because of the way I answered the questions or didn't, the lack of passion, the lack of knowledge. Because when you're passionate about something, you know your subject, or you'll research it and you'll find out what you can. So going into an interview fully prepared and demonstrating you know something about the subject, I didn't. I went to these interviews going, yeah, my dad wants me to become an accountant. I didn't say that, but that's what was going on in the back of my mind. Of course, people can read through that; they can see through it. So, and I have the same thing when I'm interviewing people. I know when people are up for it, when they're not, when they have the right experience and not. You can tell. You just know. So.
And then you found your way into sales somehow.
Oh, so I did a degree in what was called Business Information Systems, which is a broad-based business studies, IT, had psychology, sociology, marketing, law, had a whole raft of things, which was really interesting. And in my year out, so it was a 4-year sandwich degree, and I did my year out at Pilkington Glass in St Helens.
Okay.
And there was so I worked in the IT department, programming mainframe stuff. I was starting to work with PCs when the IBM PC was first around. So and there was a young chap that worked at Computer Centre. So Computer Centre, up and coming, large reseller. I remember he had a Sharp suit and an Astra GTE, which at the time was like, oh wow, amazing. And he was a technical sales guy, so he knew something about technology, but he was sort of in sales and sort of not, and I didn't understand what that was, but I knew I wanted that. He had the car that I wanted, and he had the Sharp suit. I thought, that's what I want to be. I don't want to be a programmer. I remember the lady that ran the department at the time said, oh, you can't do that. You can't go and just become a technical salesperson. You've got to do all the programming, learn IT properly. I went, no, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, that's utter rubbish. And so I ended up becoming a techie, but pre-sales. So my first job after university, I worked for a company in Chessington in Surrey, and I was installing and setting up demos on voice recognition equipment. So back in the day, back in 1989, this is a new thing, a new concept where you'd have machines that would automate telephone responses. So recorded messages. So press 1 for this, and it would speak back to you and give you responses and allow you to do certain things like online banking, telephone banking. Back in the day, it was such a new thing. So I was a pre-sales guy. I went out and did all that, and then eventually, it must have been 96 it was. So I've been doing an array of pre-sales jobs, including working for a company called Bay Networks, which was a very, very big networking company at the time. I'd been a networking specialist. I'd been a frame relay specialist. I'd been a new frame switching specialist, routing specialist. I used to train people on internet routing. And I remember one day in a meeting thinking, why is it that these guys get all the money? I do all the hard work. It's not fair. And so I ended up having a chat with my boss at the time. And I said, look, I want to be in sales. He said, okay, we'll put your money where your mouth is. You need to take a drop in salary, your base salary. I went, okay, fine. And literally, we went to see the head of HR that afternoon, and we agreed to move me into a sales role. Wow, fantastic. And I never looked back. What I thought at the time, though, was being a techie was harder than being a salesman. And of course, it isn't. Being a salesman is one of the hardest jobs in the world. And you have to be smart, you have to be resilient, you have to work, it's very process driven. You have to put a lot of commitment in. And that's what I've learned over the years. The people that are successful in sales are hardworking, they're process driven, they're not necessarily coin operated. Yeah, we are, but people in sales don't last in sales just because they're interested in money. The last in sales is because a lot of people go into sales because they're wowed by the big numbers about the salaries, but actually it's not just that. It's sense of achievement, the psychology, the human interaction, the challenge of winning. That's part of the interest in sales. So so moving into sales, my first job in sales in 1996, never looked back, but I realised very quickly, crikey, this is hard work. So I've been there ever since.
What was your attitude towards money at the time, back in 1996, just starting your first sales role? Because it can always it's an interesting topic, really, because, going to work to make more money for the business, to earn more money for yourself.
That's a really good question. And there's a whole conversation about this. So like anybody going to sales, yes, I was wowed by the idea of earning more money. And I think because, Western culture is your measure of success is often seen as a measure of your wealth, the wealth is an indicator of the measure of success, which is wrong. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so, of course, I equally looked at myself and my own success and how well I was achieving based on how much I was earning, whether I was progressing in my career. So that to me was more about, am I earning money? Am I being successful? So it was an internal personal battle I was having, rather than I just want to earn money, if that makes sense. Mm. And in fact, as time has progressed, I've realised, I remember watching something years ago. I was watching a film, and there was something about shooting for the target and just going through the process. Somebody trying to shoot a bow and arrow, I think. I can't remember what the film was. Just go through the process and you'll hit the target naturally. And that's exactly what it is in sales. Just do the process. Do what you're supposed to do, and the numbers will come. And that's what I've coached everyone in my team, all my teams over the years, everybody that I've worked with or worked for me. Just follow the process, do what you're supposed to do, and the numbers will come. And I live by that today. That's still true. So.
I would agree very much with that, which is about following the process, the right behaviours. Yeah. And that's what ultimately I think makes someone successful. I think where sometimes people struggle is by, I think is by not having a repeatable system or a process or a way of prospecting or communicating to customers, and I think that's often the downfall of a lot of people.
Yeah, completely.
With that, just go back to the money subject, because back then, years ago, I certainly thought the same, which was money, and I've said this many times to myself, which is, the more money I make, the more successful I am. That's how I measured myself, and I was able to, save some money, buy a house, going certainly those early days in sales. It was all about, if I'm earning a good commission check, then I'm happy that month. If I'm not, then I'm, and now I sort of look at that really differently now. I think that comes with maturity and time.
Yep.
So just interesting thinking do you think because I think that's what a lot of younger people think before they've experienced a bit of life. Do you think you were in, I'm not going to say a trap, but do you think you were in that mindset back then, which is, money equals success. And,
100%.
And if I make all this money, then I'll be happy.
100%. And let's be honest, most blokes, we're not comfortable in ourselves until we reach the age of 40 or beyond. We're still trying to figure out who we are. I think when you're driven by, okay, that demonstrates my success, it's my measure of success. So there's partly that. It's partly also we want the toys. And money buys toys. So I remember somebody joking with me once, it doesn't matter what you achieve in life, it's how many toys can you exit this world with, right? Funny, but actually that's not true. But it is quite funny. But yeah, I absolutely was in that trap. I didn't know who I was. I was pretty arrogant when I was young. Not nastily arrogant, just really insecure, really insecure. And I think a lot of people that go into sales probably have that same insecurity. So it somehow by earning money, helps them get over that insecurity. Problem is, it's only superficial. It's only when you survive and get through it and realize and learn who you are and are comfortable with who you are, then it becomes less of a problem, less of an issue.
The way I often think about it, and I wouldn't have known this back then, which is about validation.
Yeah.
If this customer buys from me, then that's validation that I'm a good person or I'm doing well in my job.
Yeah, that's true.
That needs to, and which does come from a point of insecurity, which for me comes from childhood. So it's just, I think a lot of people go into sales for that, but money kind of masks it.
Yes.
Because then now you feel like you're being really successful.
Yeah.
But actually, you're just every time you're looking for the next quarter, you're looking for the next deal. You're now just seeking an additional. It's all that seeking validation from external.
Yeah, spot on, absolutely spot on. In fact, there were two things that happened. Gosh, back in I'll try to think now, 20 odd years ago, before my first son was born, I was working for a company where my boss at the time, who I still am friends with, I haven't seen him for a while, but he was quite challenging as a boss. But I then subsequently realised it wasn't really him being challenging, it was the way I behaved, the way I reacted. And I was always looking for his acknowledgement, affirmation, etc. And I remember my wife saying to me at the time, she said, why are you always looking for, I won't use his name, so-and-so's, acknowledgement? Just do what you know to do. I thought, well, that's interesting. Why? That's a really good question. Why am I doing that? And then, honestly, within a week, one of the guys I work with said, Jules, why do you always worry about what other people think? Why are you always worrying about why so-and-so's got that or so-and-so's got this and how they got the bluebird and how they had the good luck? If you just got on and did what you know to do, you'd be really inspiring. I'd follow you, he said. I went, wow, really? Blimey. So two people said similar things to me within the space of a week. I thought, blimey, is that how I am? It is, isn't it? I'm always looking for validation. And getting over that and just saying, just do what you know to do. And actually, I found over the years, my judgment is generally pretty good. But I've always sought other people's acknowledgement, validation. Am I doing the right thing? Stop all that nonsense. You know what to do. Just get on with it. So, yeah. But it takes a certain point of maturity, experience, failure to get to that point. So
how long before the operation, how long were you in sales for?
Well, I moved into sales in 96. So, okay. So how long was that?
A lot of years.
Yeah, a few years. Yeah.
So let's fast forward to January the 4th, 2011. What happened on that day?
Well, the context, the background was I had a few accidents over the space of a few years. Nothing major, but I had a couple of skiing accidents. Had a jet skiing accident, had a go-karting accident. So you knew go-karting was going to come to this somewhere. Most of it was going to come to this somewhere. And I basically had a slip disc. I had a prolapse disc. And the previous year I'd had some injections to try and reduce the inflammation, the swelling. And then following year I had another episode where I ended up on the floor at home, had the paramedics come out to me. I then had a further episode later on in the year, actually Halloween. And it was 2010 Halloween. And I ended up being taken to A&E. And they said, can you still go to the loo? Do you still have bladder control? And I went, yes. And I went, right, go home then. You're kidding me. Really? That's the NHS for you. They all they want to know is, are you serious? Are you at risk of life or something serious? No, then go home. And I thought, well, this is outrageous. So I called my specialist and I said, right, I need to come and see you again. So I did. And he said, okay, your disc has gone. We need to operate. We need to do something about it. And I reluctantly agreed. And I should have known at the time. There was something about him. He was one of those that had a bit of a God complex. And again, I won't use his name because I don't want to go into that. That's not the issue. What happened was I reluctantly agreed to go for the operation. And I was told, it's a fairly simple routine procedure. Do this all the time. You'll walk in, you'll have a night's sleep, and you'll walk out the next morning. The risks are infection. You might have slight neurological deficit, as they call it, which is you might bit of numbness, you might have a bit of foot drop, etc. Okay, well, if that's the risk, but it'll only be temporary. So I sort of went, okay, fine. So I went in and I had my operation at 6:30 in the evening. Woke up 3 hours later. I thought, well, that's odd. I can't feel my legs from the knees down. I can't even move them, and that was really bizarre. And then the specialist came round, the consultant came round to see me, and he asked me how I was. I said, well, I can't feel my legs. He sort of said, that's okay, it'll wear off soon. I said, no, but I can't move them either. And there was this momentary look in his face. I thought, oh, I'm screwed. I didn't expect that look. And you, as I said earlier, you can see through. People can't lie. The faces can't lie, generally. And I thought, oh. And so I went through this period of a week or so in complete denial, thinking, I'll be okay. And in fact, actually, from that first moment when I woke up, 3 hours later, I'd actually lost the feeling and movement from the waist down. So the numbness and the lack of mobility, literally over 3 hours, progressed all the way up to my waist. I lost all control of bodily functions. I mean, everything gone, which was then quite terrifying, actually. But of course, I'm still going, I'll be okay, I'll be okay, I'll be fine. And so I had several days, I can't remember how many days it was, 8, 9, 10 days in this private hospital in Reading. And then I was transferred to the Oxford, JR at Oxford, into the neurosciences unit. And they stuck a load of needles and pins and probes in me to test. And they went, to all intents and purposes, they went, you're screwed. Obviously, they didn't use those words, of course. There's nothing going on here. Oh, okay. Not even a flicker? No, nothing. There's no neurological activity at all. How can that be? The damage is obviously very serious. Well, how the hell can that have happened? And so, of course, nobody would admit to anything. Interestingly, the place I had the operation, of course, I wanted to go and look for any evidence, so video records, etc. The video hadn't been working for my operation. Funny that, really. So anyway, I then kicked off a legal case a few months later. But that left me with permanent injury. And I remember I'd been at the JR for a couple of weeks, perhaps, and there was a young nurse. So I just had one of the rehabilitation consultants come around and see me, the spinal rehabilitation consultants, and she said, after assessing me and having looked at all the test results, she said, you're going to need to learn to manage your incontinence for the rest of your life. I'm like, what? And don't expect to ever walk again. The injury is so severe. I'm like, wow, that's a bit of a smack in the face. So I was crying my eyes out on my wife's shoulder for a couple of hours, just feeling, that's it, my life's over. And later that day, there was a young nurse, how I'll never forget.
It's okay.
Crikey.
It's okay.
I'd forgotten how emotional this makes me.
You've been through an unbelievable time.
Wow.
It's okay. Take your time.
So first day on the job as a qualified nurse, and she was changing my catheter bag, and she said, what happened to you? And I told her the story. She went, oh my goodness, that's awful. She said, I had spina bifida from an early age, and they managed to detangle my spinal cord when I was 12, but I've lost the feeling in my legs from the thighs down. I said, really? You look normal to me. She said, no, I've just learned to live with it. I walk, I do sports, I dance, I do all kinds of things. The only thing I don't do is ski, because that would be really silly. But as she said, I've broken my leg a few times and I don't feel it. She joked. I went, okay, interesting. And then the next day, my wife brought my 2 boys in to see me, who were quite young at the time. And they both, for the first time since my operation, both got into the bed and gave me a hug. And I thought, right, that's it. I've got a family. Doesn't matter what life has dealt me. I've just got to get on with this. Somehow I've got to reset my expectation of myself and what life's about. I've got a family I need to somehow take care of. So, right, stop moaning, get on with it. And then I had one of my best friends came to see me with a couple of remote control toys, a tank, 5 BB pellets, which is brilliant because I was terrorising the nurses around the water, and a little digger. And I sat there on the bed going, why me? And he said, why not you? Yeah, actually, why not me? That's absolutely right. It's a lottery. Why not me? Okay, so how I deal with this is then the important thing. Not what's happened to me, it's how I deal with this. So, yeah. And by the way, I did try and find out who that nurse was, because it was like sounds really silly, like an angel. It wasn't. It's her comment, the fact she was there at that time to make me think, this is possible. I can have a life. It was just bizarre. Having just been crying on my wife's shoulder just a couple of hours before, it was timing. Wow.
It's an unbelievable coincidence.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds like an angel's been there to send, because it's probably something that's really made a big difference to help you in some way.
That's probably what felt emotional. Yeah.
I'd love. It'd be great if we can find out who that person was. Maybe she'll reach out.
I tried a few times to track her down, but yeah, hopefully she will. But, yeah. I'd love to say thank you.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you're faced with something like this, life changing, it's not your fault. It wasn't your accident. You know, you said you felt like you had you felt like something wasn't quite right with the doctor, and then you later find out that the video wasn't on, or it's been lost, or it's not available. I would feel unbelievably angry, and I think that would be my main feeling of anger and frustration. But it sounds like somehow you've told yourself to get on with it. How does that happen? I mean,
I went through all kinds of emotions.
Yeah.
Every emotion under the sun. Anger, frustration, despair, joy, love, hope. You name it. Yes, there's a certain amount of anger. Because I was immediately going through the I just, blocking this off, going, no, it's fine, I'll be okay. It's just complete denial. And it's only when you get over the denial, then you think, I'm really angry about this, but what can I do about it? And of course, immediately the despair kicks in and okay, I'm hopeless. This is hopeless. There's nothing I can do. So, and it was only, those few events that happened that made me think, come on, get on with it. Stop bleating. You've been a whingy old sod all your life. I was a hypochondriac when I was younger. Honestly, I used to have a medicine cabinet to rival, any pharmacy. It was bonkers. Every time I went skiing with my dad, anytime I went on holiday, we'd always take this massive box of ointments, plasters, bandages, just in case something happened, tablets, you name it. Bizarre. And then when this happened, I went, well, they're not going to help me. I've just got to get on with things now. And then it became more recalcitrant. Right, this is not going to beat me. Nobody's going to tell me I can't walk again. 2 fingers up to people that say that. I'm going to prove you all wrong. So it was then there's just this, I'm going to prove you all wrong. And maybe that was partly self-validation, right? I've got to prove to myself I am strong enough. I am a man. I'm capable of looking after my family. And then it's just, right, get on with it. 1 foot in front of the next each day. And then 2 days we'll do 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet. And all this, not being able to move my legs, it was literally hanging on to parallel bars in the gym at the hospital and literally hitching my hip and just trying to stand on a leg without being able to feel anything, just so that I could somehow train my body, somehow get my nerves to go, okay, I'll fire again, I'll give you something. Yeah, I don't know what got me through that. It was just some kind of mental determination, some recalcitrance, I'm going to prove you all wrong.
So medically, what's actually happened? So because it sounds,
yeah,
because today you've come in on crutches,
yeah.
So you've got some sort of feeling back and movement back. So what had actually happened? Have you been able to understand exactly what's...
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a condition called cauda equina syndrome. Cauda equina, Latin C-A-U-D-A, equina, horse's tail it stands for. So cauda, the tail, equina of a horse. So in your spinal cord, at the bottom of your spinal cord, it breaks out into lots of individual nerve roots that look like a horse's tail. And each one of those nerve roots feeds part of your lower body. So your glutes, your front of your thighs, backs of your thighs, your feet, different parts of your feet. So some control plantar flexion where you put your foot down, some control dorsiflexion where you put your foot up, etc., etc. And what we think happened, and nobody admitted to this is the problem, nobody admitted to this, but the best suggestions from the medical experts I had through my legal case, and by the way, that legal case didn't go anywhere as it happens, was that a hematoma formed at the site of the operation and grew overnight and put pressure on that area of that cauda equina around there. And by putting pressure on it, stopped the nerves from working. And because I was left like that for 12 hours, literally left like that overnight, permanent damage done. And so nerves, as I then came to learn, grow at an inch a month. And when you've got long legs, that's a long time for them to grow. And I've also then learned that whatever you get back within 3 years is pretty much what you're going to be left with. So I was, to begin with, I had nothing. And then when I came out of Oxford, I had a twitch in my left foot. So literally just like that's all I had. I thought, right, I've got something I can focus on. There's something there. I'm going to keep doing something about it. And that stayed like that for several weeks. I was moved back to Reading, the Royal Berks in Reading. So what happened gradually over time, little bits of the nerves reconnect to the muscles, because the muscle will not work unless the nerve is connected to it. So what they call innervated by the nerve. So the nerve has to innervate, has to connect with and transmit neurons to that muscle to activate it. And similarly, there has to be a nerve pathway for senses to have neurons come back to the brain. And if those nerves are damaged, the signals don't get through one way and the other. In my case, what's happened is I have what's called cauda equina syndrome incomplete, where I've had some sense and movement return because the nerves have grown to a degree, but I'm left with permanent damage. So for example, my left leg, I have huge weakness in my left foot, so I can't push my foot down, I can't stand on tiptoes, but I can lift my foot up. I have, and if you think about the way the medical profession categorizes your ability based on previous ability, they use a 1 to 5 scale. So based on your previous strength, how do you categorize your strength now? So if you can extend your leg, is the strength in your leg 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 out of 5 based on what you're normally used to? So in my left leg, I'd say from the knee down, I have probably a 2 out of 5 original strength. Pulling my foot up, pushing down, it's maybe a 1/4 out of 5. It's almost nothing. So I can't stand on tiptoes. I don't have enough strength in it. In my right, and the feeling from the knee down, it's tingly, so I can feel something touching me. I can feel that it's sharp or soft, but I can't tell you what it is. So if you prodded me with a pencil, it would feel sharp. If you prodded me with a pair of scissors, it would feel the same. If you touched me with cotton wool or a shirt or something, it would feel the same. It's just, okay, soft or sharp. I can feel hot or cold, but I can't feel degrees of heat. So sometimes if something's warm, it will feel piping hot. So I've got to be careful. I don't, so I can't feel degrees of heat. So that's a danger. My right leg is worse though. So my right leg from the knee down is pretty much dead. So although I can feel my hairs being pulled, which is thanks for that, whoever. That's really weird. So I can't actually feel much from the knee down. So if you were to touch me, I'd go, can't feel anything. I can feel the odd tingle at the back of my calf. So if you were to touch me somewhere on my calf, I go, okay, something's happening. I can't tell you where, I can't tell you what. I can't tell you how much pressure you're putting on my calf. My foot just hangs, it's completely loose. So I can't do anything with my foot at all. So I have a resin splint I normally walk on, or today I'm using my carbon fibre splint, so it gives me a bit more of a spring in my step. So I use that all the time, which is, so I've my nerves have grown back enough to give me some strength in my right leg, so my thigh, but it's skinny, so I can't, the muscles will not grow any more than they are. So all I'm trying to do is keep them working the best of my ability. So I have to use my gym regularly. The problem is that sometimes I can wake up and the leg just doesn't work at all. I can get out of bed and go, ooh, collapse on the floor because the leg just doesn't work. I think, why is that? And nobody's been able to explain that to me. If you talk to the medical profession, they can tell you what's wrong, but they can't tell you what's going to happen. They can't give you a prognosis. It's just you're screwed or you're not screwed. So, and there are times, and people have asked me what it feels like, and the best way I can think to describe the feeling in my leg, because I have pain all the time, constant pain. When you bang your funny bone, that horrible feeling, it's like that 24 hours a day in my legs. And that, to begin with, that's hard, it's tiring. And you do get used to pain after a while. You get accustomed to the pain, you can deal with it, but only to a point. It does tire you out. So living with pain constantly is hard work. And the thing I found that helps me deal with the pain most of all is exercise, because the pain is neuropathic pain. It's not actual pain, it's neuropathic pain. So it's the brain misinterpreting the signals it's getting. So the few signals that get through, it's going, oh, your leg's been chopped off, or it's on fire, or someone's hitting it with a baseball bat. And you go, well, that's not what's happening, of course, but that's what the brain's sensing, and it's telling me you're in pain. I go, I'm not, I'm fine, but it's hard work. So exercise helps because it releases endorphins, helps the brain to cope with this. But the pain is there all the time. So
you shared a word there which I haven't. Is it neuropathic?
Yes. So
it's the brain is interpreting.
Yes.
That there's something that's going on.
Yes.
But that's obviously not going on anymore.
Correct.
So is it? So it's misinterpreting. As you said,
yes.
It's misinterpreting
yes.
that there's an actual.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So you've probably heard the term phantom pain. When people have their legs amputated or arms amputated, people talk about experiencing phantom pain. It's the same thing. And so sometimes, the brain misinterprets things. Equally, sometimes it feels like someone's electrocuting me. So occasionally my leg will just go, and I'll be, oh my God, it's just excruciating pain momentarily. And it might happen 2 or 3 times in a day, and then nothing for a week or two. And then again it'll happen, and there's no logic, there's no reason to it. Sometimes I can be walking around the house or out and about, and suddenly I'll just go, oh my God, the pain. And it's weird, it's really weird. So you get used to it. So it's more people's faces to go, you all right? Yeah, I'm fine, don't worry about me, it's okay. So, I can laugh about it now, but it's tiring. Whiskey helps.
I bet it does.
But only for the night. And the next day it makes it worse, interestingly. So, waking up with a hangover is bad. When you suffer neuropathic pain with a hangover, it's awful. It makes the nerve pain even worse. So yes, whiskey is a conscious anaesthetic only, nothing more.
I bet, yeah. So let's talk about the 12, I think it's about, how long were you off work? About 12 months?
14 months I was off work, 12 months in a
work.
wheelchair, 14 months off work in total.
So I'm interested in the journey, mentally, but also physically. So there must, and we kind of just touched on this a few moments ago, which I think you go through this chasm. Did some psychology years ago, and you go, when something major happens in your life, you go through a chasm. One is denial, then it's loss. And it's only when you start going back up at this level of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
What was that over that 12 months? What did that mental journey look like?
Yeah, the acceptance is the key.
14 months, sorry.
Yeah, the acceptance is the key. It was that, and you're right, you said there's exactly the same thing I said earlier, denial, despair, I called it at the time, hopelessness, despair, but then acceptance. The sooner you can get to accepting this is who you are, the easier it is to then get on and find a future for yourself. So for me, I spent 3 months as an inpatient, first in Oxford, then back in the Royal Berks, and all I had each day was, my purpose each day was to get myself out of bed, into the spinal gym, and just exercise. That's all I had, just focus on that each day. And I look forward to, it's bizarre, isn't it? I look forward to my food each day. It's little things, it's just little milestones, right? I've got this one little pleasure today, and that's my breakfast. A bowl of cornflakes with sugar on. That's my pleasure. And lunchtime, got my lunch coming, great. And always have a, chocolate sponge and custard, or apple crumble and custard, or whatever was on the menu. Custard, I love custard. Lashings of custard. And I always order an extra bowl of custard. And I didn't worry about the calories because I was in the gym 5 hours a day, exercising, whatever I could do. I was burning calories like you would not believe. And even to the point where I would wheel myself into the gym on my wheelchair, and I would sit on. There'd be these bikes called Medimotion bikes where you strap yourself in, and you can pedal from your wheelchair, and they're self-driven, so they will powered bikes, so they can help you, and you pedal, and it kind of helps to activate your legs at the same time. So I was doing that every day, and I would go and spend an hour on the bike, go and do something else, go and stand in a standing frame, literally strapped in, just standing. Because the more you can stand, the more it helps to retain bone density in your legs. So the worst thing is, having time off and not standing, and then a year later going, oh, my bone density's gone. My bones are so brittle, you end up breaking a leg. So standing, doing things like that, which is incredibly painful, and especially when you don't have, your glutes. This is the other thing you don't realise. Your glutes, your backside, is one of the most important muscle groups in your body because it gives you stability. Without that, it's really hard to stand. Even if you have good quads, good back, good core, your glutes are really important, and you don't realise how much you miss them. They are such a vital part of your body's stability. So working on activating those, did all kinds of exercises. I would insist the physios come and spend time with me. I'd harangue them, go, come on, I need some time with you. So through the year, I spent every waking hour I could exercising, doing something just to trigger, to kind of, activate whatever I could in my body.
So you had to have a level of belief.
Yes.
That once you've gone through the acceptance, there must have been some belief, which was, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get back as far as I can. And the only way of getting there is through training.
It started with the recalcitrance. Don't tell me I can't do this because I'm bloody well going to prove you wrong. And then it's, okay, no, actually, I can do more. I am more than this. I can be, and I will be more than this. I don't know what that more looks like yet, but I've just got to keep going, exercise, do whatever I can, and I will learn week by week what might be possible. So I didn't go into it. I didn't start my exercise regime, my whole year, with any preconceptions. Just, there's more to this than I am now. That's all I had. Except that the one thing I did want to do was drive. And excuse me. So driving was really key for me because it's my passion. And when I came out of hospital so the end of March, I came out of the first stint of full-time inpatient care, and I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk, but I then applied to what's called an RDAC, a Regional Driving Assessment Centre, to be assessed for hand controls, and so I ended up having a test, July I think it was, something like that, and because I'd actually started to get back some movement in my legs, so from the thighs I could then move my thighs. I couldn't really bend my legs properly, but I could lift my thighs up and push them down. So my glutes just about working, but I had my thigh muscles working, so abductors, adductors, so I could move my legs in and out and up and down, but I couldn't bend my knees properly. So I said, I went for an assessment and tried different hand controls, steering wheel controls, hand brake, hand accelerator, etc. And then I said to the chap, can I just try a normal automatic? He said, how do you mean? Well, can I just try normal automatic? How are you going to drive that then? Well, I just use my right thigh to push the throttle and I use my left foot to brake because both legs work. I can left foot brake. Really? Why not? I've driven go-karts plenty of times. Let's try it. Okay, so we had to go around the car park for 5 minutes. He said, okay, let's take you out on the road then. Had half an hour driving around the road and he said, you're probably safer than most normal people. I went, great. He signed me off. You're fit to drive. Only 2-pedal cars, and so that was then. I can drive. Oh my goodness, I can drive. I've got my freedom, and that was so important to me. It gave me another reason to keep going.
So of course, after what happened, your driving license got taken away.
Yes, it
right?
did. Yeah, absolutely. So legally, when you have a spinal injury, you have to declare that. So my license was taken away. Yep. Which was a killer for me, of course, because driving is everything.
So you've got to go and read. This is what you're saying. You've had to go and redo a test.
Yes.
So you can get your freedom back and go back out onto the road.
Yep. So I did that, and my license today says yes, I'm fully licensed for 2-pedal vehicles, and I have restrictions on my license that say I can only drive 2-pedal vehicles. So, but there's so much you can do with that. So yes, so having that and continuing to exercise. So even at home, when I got home from Reading, weirdly they had they assigned a local physio to me to come and help me with home physio, and this chap turned up, bless him, didn't really understand my condition, and he spent the first 5 minutes asking me to do certain things. I said, I've caught equine syndrome. I can't do anything that you're asking me to. My things don't work. There's nothing going on. Okay, well, let's try this. No, you're not listening to me. Things don't work. Nothing's happening there. Okay, well, let's try. I tell you what, we're done. And I sent him packing. 10 minutes, I sent him packing. I said, you clearly don't understand my condition. You have no experience that's going to benefit me in any way, shape or form. So I called my GP the next day, who was absolutely brilliant. And the village I live in, Woodcote, our GP practice is without doubt the best GP practice in the world ever. All the doctors there are brilliant. And my GP at the time, she wrote back to the Royal Berks for me and asked me to go be allowed back as an outpatient with regular visits for hydrotherapy and physio, etc. So, and they admitted me back on that basis. I had to go back there 3 times a week, which is a challenge, but it's still good to be able to go and do that. And my wife had to drive me there before I got my license back. And then when I got my license back, I could drive myself, get myself out into my wheelchair, out of the car into the wheelchair, get to the gym, go home. So I had some independence. So all this time I'm continuing to improve and find little ways of achieving more. So I still couldn't stand, I still couldn't walk or stand, but I had bits of my legs, muscles activated, senses, top of my thighs. I could feel things, I could move. I still had no control over bodily functions. So I would... Weirdly, I was having to wear nappies, big boy pants. And that was a challenge.
You're laughing about it now, but
I am.
At the time it must have been horrendous.
Yeah, not nice.
No.
Not nice when you have absolutely zero control. You have completely flaccid bowel and bladder. Nothing's going on. No sense, no feeling, nothing. That was a challenge. That was quite hard. But with everything else that was happening, I was thinking, okay, this bit's working. Okay, so keep going a bit more. It will come back. I've got to believe. So I just kept pushing myself every day. So even when I was at home, I had a Zimmer frame. They wouldn't give me crutches at the time because I was too dangerous. I had a Zimmer frame, and I'd go out walking with my Zimmer frame. And I say I'd go out in the back garden, and I'd walk 10 meters, literally hook myself up my Zimmer frame and hip hitch, and just try to move my legs to try and stand, get the muscles, whatever they could do. So I end up with carpal tunnel syndrome in both wrists because the constant pressure on my wrist. So I end up having to go for injections to have that dealt with. And then it was just a constant battle through the year. Everything was a hurdle. Everything was a challenge. We'd had a new kitchen and bathroom built just before my injury. So literally December 2010 it had been finished, and we had a shower fitted in the, next to our bedroom downstairs, and we said, right, leave the shower screen off, the glass off, so I can wheel myself into the shower on my shower chair so I could become independent. And that was important to me, to make sure I could just live, cope, be independent, just be able to get on and do things, so that A, prove it to myself, B, I wasn't a burden to anybody, my wife included, and just be able to do all these little things bit by bit, it continues to give you hope. Each little milestone, each little achievement was a major success. And so every time you get, to achieve something else, right, it spurs you on more. And that's how I did it. That's how I survived. And we got to December. So every year my wife and I go away to Hastings, something we've done for eons. Every December, first weekend in December. And this particular year, 2011, so still in my wheelchair. I still wasn't able to. So I could stand if I stood with my Zimmer frame. And by this time I was using elbow crutches because I'd had a stint in Stoke Mandeville, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second. But if I stood, I could bend my right knee. I could bend my right leg at the knee a little bit, but I couldn't bend my left one. Sorry, other way around. I could bend my left one. I couldn't bend my right one. It was completely dead. Nothing happening. And so we went to Hastings, and this year we decided to take the boys with us. And they were still quite young. They're still what were they, 7 and 5. And I said to my wife, I'm going to leave my wheelchair in the car. She said, what? No, I'm going to leave my wheelchair in the car. Just humour me for the first day. So we got there on the Friday lunchtime. And the intention was to walk as far as I could. And then I said, well, grab a taxi. Well, just let me use my crutches. I want to use my crutches. I want to force myself to be out of my wheelchair. And I walked over a mile on my elbow crutches. I'd never done that before. It was just single-minded. I've got to do this. Okay, it took us an hour to get there, which it would have taken, 15 minutes before. But I did it. And I had to stop and keep going and stop and keep going. And the pain through the wrists, of course, constant, leaning on my crutches, the pain in my legs. But I did it. And we got to a pub called the Hastings Arms, which we go to every year. And I enjoyed this fantastic pint of Spitfire. Absolutely wonderful. And then another one. Right. And then I walked back in the evening, back to the hotel in the evening.
How did describe that feeling when you got to the pub to have that drink?
Elation. Feeling emotional again now. It was wow. I've done this. Oh my God, I can walk. And so that was probably the single biggest achievement, the biggest success, the most emancipating of all the things I've done through the year, to be able to walk that far and to enjoy a pint with my family. The only thing that my daughter wasn't there with us. My daughter is from my first marriage. She doesn't live with us, but I wish she'd been there to see that with me. But nonetheless, I had my boys and my wife, and we were there, and brilliant. We had 3 pints, and I hobbled back. We walked up around the old town for half an hour or so. I sat in the bar, went out a little walk around, sat down again, and then we walked back in the evening, and I walked all the way back again. And then the following morning on the Saturday, again we walked all the way up to the old town, and then that was it. I was done. I was spent. So we got a taxi back in the evening. But it was incredible. And then we got home on the Sunday night, and I was lying on the sofa. This is really bizarre. I was lying on the sofa and lying on my front. Don't know why I was lying on my front, but I was lying on my front, and I suddenly felt my right leg, my hamstring, activate. I thought, oh my God, I can move, I can lift my leg. So my right leg, which I hadn't been able to bend, I could bend it. So lying on the ground and being able to bend my leg up like that, I hadn't been able to do. It just wasn't enough strength. So somehow walking had triggered my muscles to activate and work properly. So I said, that's it, I'm giving my wheelchair back. She went, no, I'm giving my wheelchair back. I'm taking it back to the hospital. So on the Monday, I called the hospital and said, can I bring my wheelchair back? And I did. That was it. I refused to have a wheelchair after that, because I thought, if I can do this, I'm going to force myself, because I'm going to have to walk everywhere. It's just going to force me to get better and better, faster. So I did. And
Wow, this is just incredible. This is incredible. What you've been through is unbelievable. You've been so determined to make it happen. It's like you've applied this. It's not even a positive mental attitude. It's just a determination that it's not going to beat you.
Yeah.
And you forced yourself. You forced your body to regain the ability to walk.
Do you know what it is? So when I was in hospital for the first time, I remember there was a young lad, when I was in the Royal Box, there was a young lad, must have been in his 20s, I think. He'd had a spinal injury, and he'd given up. He wasn't going to the gym, he wasn't exercising, he wasn't doing anything, he was just lying on his bed each day. And I remember him coming over in his wheelchair to come and chat with me. He said, how are you so determined? I said, because life has got so much to offer. There's so much to live for. And I realised then, because I was of an age where I had lived a life, I had seen and enjoyed and travelled and done so many things. I thought, well, I know what there is to offer. There must be so much more. Because he was so young, I don't think he'd appreciated what was possible. And so my determination, I think, was just, I do not want to give up. I refuse to give up, which is where I don't know if you've seen my website. On my website, my logo is never give up, ever. So yeah, that's what I want to instill in my kids as well. Never give up. So.
And I think you certainly will. I think you certainly have. Because it's just incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
I don't know why I keep
through.
getting emotional. It's, I guess I've not talked about this for years, and so you're asking me things. So all the emotions come flooding back.
It's okay. Listen, you've been through something unbelievable, and let me let's lighten it slightly. You mentioned on your website that you used to call yourself a grumpy old git, but you don't come across like that today. So what's changed?
I learned to laugh again. When you're faced with adversity like this, learning to laugh again is the best therapy. It's a coping mechanism, and then learning to cope then triggers this. Actually, that's how I used to be when I was young. Why can't I just be this way anyway? So I remember my dad saying to me when I was young, remember, son, happiness is the way, not the goal. And it was one of those stupid little phrases my dad always used to say to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, Pop, whatever. And it is, happiness is the way. And learning to laugh again, learning to laugh in the face of adversity was, part of what got me through. So, because when you're in hospital and you see all these other people with injuries that are as bad or worse than your own, you think, blimey there, but for the grace of God and all that. I'm not religious, but it's, a turn of phrase. But somebody, some higher power is looking after me. Something is, I've just given me the good fortune to have a go at doing something with my life. So stop bleating, stop complaining, stop thinking ill of anything, stop looking for excuses to not do things, stop thinking, that's bad, that's wrong, no, look at what's possible in life. Enjoy sitting in the garden for 5 minutes, enjoy the smell of the flowers, enjoy talking to people. Don't judge people, don't think, oh, you've got this going on, you've got that going on. Actually, yes, everyone has something going on. Everyone has a battle they're dealing with that you know nothing about. And it was a Robin Williams quote, I remember. And I love that because it is true. Everyone has something going on that you know nothing about. So don't judge people, be kind. And it was that, I remember in the gym at Stoke Mandeville, I'd been there. This is literally the second day I was at Stoke Mandeville. And I'd met this guy on the first day. He had motor neuron disease, so he was on a downhill track, which wasn't good. But he was still laughing and smiling and joking. And then one of his friends, we were in the spinal gym the next morning, and one of his friends wheeled himself in, and he called across to this guy, and excuse me for swearing on this, he said, "Oi, Ali, you fucking spaz," which is completely inappropriate. But in that setting, where you are surrounded by people who are massively disabled, who are really up against it, everyone just laughed. And you go, that's what life should be about. Laugh in the face of adversity. Just make light of it, because that's the way to get through it. And then when you can do that, you realise, actually, everything in life is worth smiling about and laughing about. Find fun, find humour, find enjoyment in everything you do. So yeah, and now I believe I've earned the right to be a grumpy old git. so there are times now when my kids joke, "Dad, you're being a grumpy old git." Yes, I am. Bugger off. But I can laugh about it, and we can laugh about it. And so, it was funny actually, because my daughter, lived at the time with my ex-wife and her stepfather. I used to have to go and collect her, so her stepfather brought her to see me a few times in the hospital. And then when I was able to drive again, I started picking her up again, and it must have been, I don't know, 4th or 5th time I'd collected her, and she was sitting in the car, really quiet, on the motorway, on the M25 on the way back, and just out of nowhere, she suddenly piped up, "Dad, I really like you now." Where did that come from? What? And I just looked at her, and she said, "But you were never there before. You were always working so hard. We never had conversations in the car like we do now. You were always on the phone, you were always busy." Oh my God. So, yeah. It teaches you a lot about yourself going through something like this, and it makes you realise what's important in life. And so my kids now all say, "You are a changed man, a changed person." I have a completely transformed relationship with everybody. My kids, my wife, my friends, my family, work, everything. And so yes, when I am being a grumpy sod, when I am tired or stressed, they can turn around and go, "Dad, you're being a grumpy old git." All right, okay. Which is good, so we can laugh about it. Yeah.
And now, again, going back to your website, after what's happened, and you know, because life can go in a lot of different directions after that. You know, I can understand, by the way, just, you know, I've had a sales career. You're in sales for, you know, a lot of years, 20 plus years since, you know, before the operation.
Yeah.
And your life does get wrapped up in the numbers, end of quarter.
It does.
This, and you're, you know, you're constantly stressed. Your boss needs this, you need to deliver this number. And, you know, you're trying to also build and provide for a family. And you do get wrapped up. I have done, you know, and it does take away from your life. There's no question. The amount of times my wife has looked at me and she'll talk and she's like, she know I'm physically there, but mentally I'm writing an email. I'm rehearsing what I'm about to say to my client tomorrow, so I can you know, progress a deal or something. And you do lose. You completely lose
Perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You know, my little Logan's only 2 now. And then in these last 2 years, I've really been struggling a bit, just going through lots of things at business and everything else. And I've just not been present. That's been the biggest thing, just not being present. And it sounds like it's almost like you've had a life before the operation, a life after the operation. Before the operation, maybe you didn't appreciate everything as much as you do now. Maybe after.
It's a cliche, but absolutely. 100%.
Maybe now there's complete appreciation for everything.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it is a cliche, but that's why I say to myself and to everybody else, I think I'm the luckiest guy on the planet, because I've been given a second chance at a life. And yeah, definitely.
And then how did you get to realise your dream?
So we were in Hastings. I can't remember which year it was, 2014, 2015 or 2014, I can't remember now. And I've always wanted an Aston Martin, always, from being, again, knee-high, since I first saw Goldfinger, of course. So, and I've been going on about wanting an Aston for a long time. And then, of course, had my injury, and that's it, it's over. And then got to driving again. I went, I could have an Aston Martin again. Didn't think it at the time, because I, you know, got back to work thinking, well, my career's over. So I'm not, you know, at the time. And then as my career started to progress, which is another conversation, that's an interesting lesson in life I've shared with a few people. Come back to that. But when I was starting to earn money again and my career was doing okay, I suddenly realised I could afford to buy an Aston Martin. And again, it was just doing what I needed to do, doing the work I needed to do. The money just came. It wasn't focusing on the money because I wanted an Aston. It was just, I'm doing this job and I'm doing a good job, as it turns out now, because I'm not worrying about it. And so suddenly we have this pot of money. I'm going, I can afford to buy one. Nothing to do with a legal case, because I couldn't pursue my legal case. We had to drop it. So I had nothing from my injury at all. So we're sitting in Hastings in this bar. They say the Hastings Arms, the same one, and we're sitting there, and I'm on my phone. I'm on Auto Trader on my phone, and my wife said, and my wife's called Helena. She said, "What are you looking at?" Nothing. She went, "Oh, you're looking at cars again, aren't you? You're looking at Astons, aren't you?" And might be. She went, "Oh, go on, let me see." So I showed her the picture. She said, "Was quite nice." I went, "Ooh, okay, that's a good sign." She said, "Can we afford it?" And I went, "Yes." She said, "Oh, okay then." So literally, I went outside, and I called the dealer, and I said, "Can I?" And it was way up in the north of England, and I got them to drive it down for me to see it. And they drove it down on the Monday. This was the Saturday I'd called them. They drove it down on the Monday, and I bought it there and then. I drove it, of course, and I bought it there and then. And then, so when my wife and Helena got home, she went, "You bought it then?" "Well, you said I could." She went, "You were going to do it so quickly." Yeah, but I've been looking at them for a long time, so I knew what I wanted. So then, coming back to your question about racing and how that got to be, so I then ended up taking my Aston on a track day. A lot of people want to look after their cars, keep them nice and shiny. Well, I've got an Aston, I want to drive it, I want to enjoy it. That's why I have these cars. So I took it on an Aston Martin Owners Club track day with the Jaguar Car Club as well. And I ended up chasing these much faster cars around this track. And one of the guys got out, because I signed myself on as a novice, and one of the guys got out at the end. He said, "You're not a novice. You race cars, don't you?" I went, "No, not at all. You know what you're doing with the car. You should be in the advanced group." So I went out in the advanced group later on. And again, there were a couple of guys in V12 Advantages that were way quicker than mine. And I was way quicker than they were. And so I had a what I thought was a natural feel for a car, which I do. I have a good feel for driving. And so they said, "Oh, you should think about becoming a racing driver." I went, funny you should say that. I've been thinking about it for many, many years, actually. And then I took my daughter on a track day at Thruxton, and I was talking to one of the instructors there. This was in 2015. It was her birthday present. So, and I was talking to one of the instructors. I said, "What does it take to get your race license?" And when he told me, I went, "Oh, I could do that." So I called the Motorsport UK, RAC at the time. It's still owned by the RAC, but the governing body for UK Motorsport, and ordered my Go Racing pack, which is the blue book, which is basically the regulations, information, video, instructions how to get your race license, how to go and get your test completed. It's called an ARDS test, Association of Racing Driver Schools test. So I booked in to do that, and it's half day where you sit in a classroom and they teach you all the flags and safety procedures and how to communicate, but basically common sense safety, because flags are the only way the marshals have of communicating with you when you're on the circuit. So you've got to know your flags. It's critical. Safety is critical, of course. So you do that, and then you go out on track, and the instructor takes you around, and they teach you the lines, and then they let you drive, and they'll coach you. And I did 2 laps, and he went, "You're fine." I went, "Okay, is that it?" He went, "Yeah, you're okay." So he came back and he went, "Yep, tick, no problem, thumbs up." So then you take a test, a multi-choice test and a part written test from the stuff you've learned in the morning, and if you pass that test, then you get your novice license. So I did that. There was a class of 6 of us, and one of them failed, and and they were. All they were doing all morning during the classroom session was looking at the clock, looking at the watch, going, "When are we out on track? You need to learn the flags. This is pretty important." And they wouldn't get anyway, so they failed their test, but the other 5 of us passed ours. Like, got a race license. Now what do I do? What the heck do I do with this? So I go racing. How the heck do I do that? So of course, when I told Helena I got my race license, she went, "Oh God." Because he'd actually said to me, "You want to go motor racing? What, with a spinal injury? You've just recovered from a spinal injury. Are you serious?" "Yeah, kind of. Yes." She went, "Oh." And then when I actually got my license, she was, "Oh, you're serious, aren't you? You've gone and done it." "Yeah, I did say I was going to." So I called up a load of clubs. I called a handful of the main national clubs like BRSCC. British Racing and Sports Car Club, British Auto Racing Club, 750 Motor Club, all run different championships and motor racing series, and I needed to find something that would allow 2-pedal cars. And as luck would have it, the 750 Motor Club were just kicking off a BMW M3 Cup Championship in 2016, and so this was now December, and so I rang around a load of people to find out. I didn't know whether to have a car built or to rent a car. No idea. And all the people that were building cars that were renting out were all manuals. And I thought, well, I can't drive a manual car. And nobody was building an SMG, a sequential manual gearbox BMW at the time. I thought, well, I need to have it built then. So I called several people. And there was one chap I spoke to, Geoff Steel, Geoff and I are now good friends. Oldest chap, been in the business for a long time. He's known as Mr. BMW. He races, he builds race cars, BMW race cars for everybody. He was asked to build touring car, get involved in touring cars. He used to race touring cars way back. He actually raced in BTCC many years ago himself. Ex-rally driver. And he had this air of calm assuredness, complete confidence in what he was doing. And he tried to put me off. He was determined to put me off. He was testing me to see if I was really serious. Basically, if I build you a car, Julian, we only do proper builds, so don't expect this to be a cheap car. That wasn't what he said, but that's what was obvious. And there was something about his knowledge and wisdom and experience. I went, yeah, go on then, we'll do it. So I agreed, and I actually bought a car, a donor car, an old M3, and I had it shipped up to Geoff. No paperwork, complete trust. Just literally having had phone calls. I'd never even met the guy. It was just over the phone. I bought this car and I had it shipped up to him. And you just know, you've been around long enough to know when people are pulling your plonker and when they're not. And this guy, I just knew. Anyway, they built me an absolutely brilliant race car. SMG gearbox, so I could use it was 2 pedals, so I had pedal shift. And I started racing. Luckily, I'd had a couple of good years of earnings, so I had enough to build the car. What I hadn't appreciated was how much it was going to cost me every time I crashed. And it's expensive. And but several people said to me, if you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough. So my headphones keep falling off.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's it. Better.
Okay.
If you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough. And of course, I took that at face value and went, okay, well, let's try harder. Oh, I've crashed again. Oh, I've crashed again. I've crashed again. Okay, this isn't going so well.
These are expensive mistakes.
Yeah, they are. And but what I realised very quickly was, even having driven lots of fast cars in my life, and having been, I've done track days, I've driven go-karts, I've raced go-karts, thinking I'm a god behind the wheel, because you do, don't you, when you drive fast cars? I know what I'm doing. You get onto a racetrack and go, I've absolutely no clue what I'm doing. Why am I even here? I'm terrified. Oh my God, these guys must all be cheating. How are they going so fast? You realise racing is an entirely different skill, different level of driving ability. And you need coaching. You have to be coached. And to progress, to get on well, to become a good racing driver, you have to have feel, you have to have an ability to learn, to be coached. You have to have intelligence to interpret what you're told, how to do it, how to apply what you've learned, and then to translate a feeling into a reaction. So those 3 key things you need. Yeah, and it's been the best thing I've ever done. Absolutely the best thing I've ever done. It is such an adrenaline rush, and it's probably the most relaxing as well, interestingly, because you are, I don't know if you ski at all.
Badly. I mean, I've fallen over thousands of times probably when I've done it before, but badly, I'd say.
But you know what it's like when you're skiing. You're only thinking about skiing, right? There's nothing else going on in your head. It's just skiing. Same with driving. Same with racing. There is nothing going on other than what's around me. How am I going to get around that corner? Can I brake in time? Am I going to beat this guy? Blah, blah, blah. That's all that goes on in your head, and it's absolutely brilliant. It just takes you away from all of reality. It's just this zone you're in, which is immense. It's the best thing I've ever done.
Flow state, I think it is, isn't it? When you're just completely locked in on something, and there's no room for thought about anything else because you're so focused on that moment.
Absolutely.
I think it's called flow state, yeah.
So.
And how do you race now? So there's competitions I saw on your website, there's different competitions that you're involved with. How does it all work now?
Yeah, so I started in this thing called the M3 Cup, which is a one make series. So only lasted for a couple of seasons, unfortunately, but one make series, all exactly the same spec car, 20-minute sprint races. And I realise I'm not good at sprint races. So my disability is a challenge for me, because you in racing you have to have fine throttle control, especially on slow corners or in the wet. And I don't have fine throttle control because I use my whole leg to press the throttle.
Got you.
So that's a challenge. And also when you brake hard, because I don't have the strength, my leg falls forwards and pushes the throttle again. And I don't even realise I'm doing it because I can't feel anything. So I end up understeering. I used to understeer around corners because I was braking and still on the throttle at the same time. So then trying to make the throttle up afterwards, and the engine's going, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that was a challenge. And so for me, because I was, to begin with, quite scared, as most people are, until you get going, and I would always set off on the first lap quite gingerly. And I say gingerly, still quickly, but compared to everybody else, they've gone, half a lap and they've already gone. I'm going, well, I've lost already. So sprint races, I was never good at sprint races, because if you're not on it on the very first lap, you've lost. So by the end of the second season, 2017, I was getting quite good, but I was still finishing halfway down the pack, 10th out of 20 odd cars. But I was clearly improving. I knew how to handle a car. I could feel cars sliding. I could learn what to do with it. But what I did realise, though, was I was good at long distance. I was good at consistent, long periods of concentration. So, and then I ended up doing this thing called the Burkett Relay, which is a 6-hour relay race. So, and you basically go on and off track with other teammates. So one person comes in, you go out, you come in, somebody else goes out, etc. And so doing a long period on track when you've got lots of cars buzzing around you all the time, learning racecraft, learning how to handle a car when you're being chased by faster cars or overtaking faster cars. There's something going on all the time. You've got to have your wits about you all the time. And I realised I could be consistent in that traffic for a long period of time. So I thought, endurance racing is what I want to do. I want 2-3 hour races. I really enjoy that. So I had to go this thing called Club Enduro. At the time it was a series in 2017, and a series is where you don't score points, you just get a trophy for that race. And in 2018 they decided to make it a championship, so I had to go in 2017. I loved it, and then they turned it into a championship in 2018. I went, that's it, I'm all in. And I gave up on the M3 Cup because I knew sprint racing is not really my forte, but endurance racing, I can do well at endurance racing. And I finished third in the championship in Class A, my class.
Against fully abled?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not saying I'm a brilliant driver. I'm just consistent, and I was able to bang in lap times. And there's an age-old adage in racing, to finish first you must finish. And I was able to finish all my races and keep going, and I had, and that's just consistently, bagging points.
Not having crashes.
And I had 3 podium finishes. I had, including one at Spa in Belgium, which was absolutely mega. The most epic track in the world that I've experienced anyway. So yeah, to come away with a podium finish at Spa, Anglesey, Rockingham as well, when it was still a track, was brilliant. So
being on that podium, let's talk about how you felt that moment, thinking about everything you've been through to get to where you are, to being on the podium.
Not real.
Really? Not
real. I didn't enjoy it enough. It was like, oh, great, I'm on the podium. And it was only afterwards, oh my God, I didn't really enjoy being on the podium because it didn't feel like it was real. It was weird. Yeah. But
might be still
I've got my trophies. I got my trophies. So
might be still full of adrenaline from the race, maybe, or don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Adrenaline, probably denial as well. This isn't me. Imposter syndrome. Am I really here? Is this me? No, I'm going to get found out. I've cheated somehow. But yeah, and then now, no, absolutely, I'm balls out. I want to win. I have the talent. Unfortunately, this year I've been nowhere near the front. In fact, I've been taken out in every race so far this season, apart from the very first one. So new car, new engine, new gearbox. Everything's new about it. Whole different way of driving. Twin turbo. Huge amount of torque, low end. So having fine throttle control is essential, which I don't have. So on tight corners and low speed corners, if I hit the throttle too hard, back end goes out, gone. And because you don't use traction control, you don't use stability control, otherwise you go too slow. So if you don't get the throttle control just right, your back end's gone. And so so having to learn to drive the car with that limitation has been a challenge. But I ended up at Snetterton a couple of months ago, finishing fourth. I was running fourth. I got myself from 24th up to fourth. I'd qualified badly in the rain. Got myself from 24th to fourth with 19 minutes to go on a 3-hour race, and the front steering arm snapped.
Oh.
So like, oh no! But I actually felt great because I knew my driving was good. I knew I was actually back on the pace with this new car, and so this season has been a proving ground for me with this new car, and we're constantly making modifications to the car. So this weekend I'm up at Alton Park, and we're going to try not to actually use it in the race, but just to try and see how it feels. A ring throttle, so a ring that sits in front of the steering wheel. So on slow corners, if I can just use my thumb to press the throttle, especially in the rain, just gently, so it gives me a little bit more control in low speed, and then I still have my foot throttle to use for high speed, we're going to test that, see if that helps me. So yeah.
I was going to ask, what, if any, modifications has been made to the cars, that you've been driving over the years to kind of suit you? What is there things that you've done with the cars to make it more suitable for you?
Yeah. So the first car, because I have this issue with braking and being on the throttle at the same time, because I can't feel when my foot's on the throttle, I have to pull my leg back, and sometimes if I'm braking hard, the leg just falls onto the throttle.
Right.
So I can't change that. With the first car, there wasn't the electronics capability to do that. Well, there could be, but I'd have to spend a lot of money on it. So what we did, we set up a little bright yellow light, LED light, to come on when I was on the brake, and a set of red LEDs with a cover over. I could see them when I was on the throttle. So I could see both those at the same time, go right, consciously in my line of sight to say, my foot's on the throttle, pull it off. So we did that, and it just helped to focus the mind. And then actually, and of course, things like my throttle pedal was a wide pedal, and it had a lip on it on the right hand side, because my foot would fall off the side of it, and I go, why am I not moving? Oh, my foot's fallen off the throttle. I didn't realise. And my brake pedal was a really wide one, because it's ordinarily you brake pedal, you use your right foot for brake and throttle. But of course, I have to use my left foot. In M3, the pedal's all the way over to the right, so I have to stretch my leg over there, which is uncomfortable. So they made the pedal wider, so I could just bang my foot down and I'd hit the brake wherever. This new car so the old car was standard M3 pedal setup, standard gearbox, obviously with software changes, but this one is a whole bespoke build. So it's a pedal box. So I've got a throttle and brake, no servo assist. So literally have to stamp on the brake hard, and that requires a lot of strength. So I need my foot raised, so I can get as much leverage on the brake pedal as possible. So I actually have to brake with my heel, because my foot's so weak it pushes my foot back. So I have a support on my left foot that keeps my foot at right angles. So I have to stamp on the brake with my heel, so my foot's raised on a platform. So I basically just slide my foot forwards and backwards like a piston, and it's set within a channel, so the foot doesn't fall off and interfere with the throttle, which it did a couple of times to begin with, which is quite hairy. And then my throttle pedal, same thing as my old one. I've got a wide pedal, and it's got a big lip on the side of it, and it's kind of a lip, and it's sloped like that. So if my old pedal, if I put my foot down, took it off the throttle and put it back down on the throttle, sometimes it would catch the side of the lip, and it would stick on there, and then it would suddenly slam down on the pedal, and of course, suddenly you unsettle a car. So this one, I've got a tapered side to it, so everything is set up to try and help me be more smooth, but I'm still limited with having to use my whole leg to press the throttle. So we're trying different things. So I've adapted my driving style. So I try and, on slow speed corners, I try and change up early, so I'm not applying so much torque. But of course, it then leaves me at a disadvantage when other cars are using all the torque they've got to get out of slow speed corners. So yeah, it's this ring control I'm going to try at the weekend will be another aid. We'll see if that helps. So yeah.
When you're looking at your life now, does it feel like you're living your dream? That being able to race cars just like you wanted to do when you're a little boy, does it feel like you're living a dream? Does it feel different to that? I mean, how does it feel?
I'm not living my dream, because my dream would be to be a professional racing driver.
Yeah.
But this is the next best thing. I get to enjoy the thing that I always dreamt about being, which is a racing driver. So I get to be a racing driver. So when people ask me, what do you do? I go, I'm a racing driver. I do some IT stuff as well, but I'm a racing driver. I'm lucky. I'm not living my dream, but I'm living part of the dream I had, which is I get to race. Actually, I had three major things I wanted to achieve. One of the other dreams I had when I was really young was to fly a Spitfire. I've flown a Spitfire, and I don't just mean I've been in a Spitfire. I've actually flown a Spitfire.
Wow.
And I flew a Spitfire over Brands Hatch while it was race going on, so a double whammy. So I get to fly the Spitfire, dip the wing, and fly it round Brands Hatch. Absolutely amazing. And the other one was to ski with three generations of my family. So my father, my wife, and all my kids. So three generations of McBrides, and I've done that even after my spinal injury. So I got to skiing again, although I now can't because I smashed my right leg to pieces a few years ago. So skiing with my family, three generations, tick. flying a Spitfire. I never ever thought I'd do that. But my 50th birthday present from my family and all my friends was a Spitfire voucher. So tick, racing driver, tick. That's it, I'm done. Now it's, I want to race at Le Mans. And I'm never going to race in the 24 hours because I'm too old and not good enough. But if I somehow could race in a precursor event at Le Mans, just to be able to race around the full Le Mans circuit somehow, that would be the pinnacle of my racing aspiration. I'd love to do that. But I want to keep racing for the rest of my life, as long as I can. So the guy that, Geoff, that built my car, his business that built my car for me, because he still races, he's into his 70s, he still races. That's what I want to do. So for me, it's about enjoying as much of my life as I possibly can, giving my kids the best opportunity they can. I get them involved. They want to race. They race go-karts. Even my daughter loves racing. She loves go-karts. They all want to be involved somehow. So, yeah.
Do you think if you hadn't have had the spinal injury, do you think you still would have raced?
No.
Why is that?
I wouldn't have had the balls to go and just go for it. I'd have always found excuses, because I had excuses for so many years. Oh, I can't race because I don't have enough money, or I've got a family obligation, or I've got this going on, or blah, blah, blah. And then you go, oh, actually, life's too short. I just need to make this happen. So, no, I don't think... I may have had to go at a few test days. I may have, at some point, got my race license, had to go at a few test days, going, right, I've done that. Or probably not. I think I probably would have had excuses for a long time. Apart from anything else, not having raced, I could always tell myself I was a great driver. Didn't have to prove myself to anybody. Now racing, realising I was a rubbish driver, and now I'm actually an okay driver. I don't think I would have done. So I
think that goes back to the mindset conversation that we've been having, which is your mindset completely changed after you had to strive again, had to rebuild yourself physically, mentally, rebuild your life. And it's like you were like reborn as a new person. Yeah. It's funny because I was saying about being promoted and not having. I was so focused on my career before, and I didn't really have a career. And then having given that up, having got back to work and giving up the career, and thinking, well, that's it. There's nothing left for me. I'm just going to work, and as long as I can earn some money, I'm okay. And so I got back to work, and I was promoted. So I started back at work in 2012, and in 2013 I was promoted to run the UK for HP Security Products. And I said to my boss at the time, so why did you promote me to do, why do you suddenly ask me to do this? What changed? He said, you gave up on worrying about what was next. You just did the job you were supposed to do really, really well. You focused on the job in hand, you did that. And that's what I want you to do now. And that's been a brilliant lesson, because that's what I now tell everybody else. Don't think about other things. Just focus on what you need to do now. So the whole transformation in me, in my life, was, stop worrying about things. Just focus on the process. Do what you're supposed to do, and the results will come. And I've forgotten the question you asked me now. But no, it's just who you were before and who you are after, and why you. Just trying to understand, because I completely understand why, but I'm trying to put it into words of how you've changed as a person to just go after that dream, and it's like you've got this focus around your life now where you've got to get things done, the right things, as in you've got to live these dreams. You've got to, you need to be able to look back and be that inspiration for your children and your family and be strong, because it's like it kind of woke you up.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
It's like an awakening.
It is. And again, it's a bit of a cliche. You don't realise what you've got until you've lost it. And I suppose because I was at the age I was when it happened to me, you suddenly realise, oh, crikey, I'm now halfway through my life.
44, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've now got only half a life left. I've got to get on with this. And because I've got a spinal injury, my life expectancy is shortened as well.
Right.
So they say the average your life expectancy on average with a spinal injury is reduced by about 10 years.
Right.
So I now no longer will live to 100.
It depends how you drive, doesn't
well,
it?
Indeed, yeah. But it was that realisation that, oh, crikey, life's whizzing by, and I've been a grumbly old sod for the last, 15, 20 years. I had fun when I was young. Just get on with things again. Enjoy it. Find reasons to do things, not excuses not to. And so I've just, like the Spitfire, I at the same time went out and went in a helicopter. I'd never been in a helicopter before. I wanted to go and have a go in a helicopter. Silly things like that. Right, go and do these things. You know, I went to, so I was running an international team. I went over to China and Hong Kong and Australia, did a whole year and a half of traveling for work. Brilliant, fantastic experience, really getting to experience other cultures. And yes, it's a microcosm because it's all within IT, but you still get to experience other cultures, which is a great privilege. And a real humbling experience as well, because you see the way other people live, the challenges they have, the poverty, and you go, wow, I'm so lucky I get all this. We are so lucky living in the UK. We get to, you know, we don't have any problems living here. But doing all that and seeing and spending time with other people and looking at the way they value things, less focus on objects, more focus on life experiences. And that's what became evident to me. Life isn't about toys, it's about experience. I've got to cram my life with as much experience as I possibly can now, and that's what it is. So I'm lucky I've enjoyed owning and driving an Aston for a few years. I've sold it, by the way, now. I don't have it because I stopped driving it. It sat in the garage gathering dust because I race, so I can't get the fun out of driving a fast car on the road anymore. I don't bother. So, and to me, it was, okay, I don't need that. I'd rather, you know, we spend money on the house. My wife enjoyed, we've got a beautiful garden. My wife's done a fantastic job with the garden, and it's now a piece of tranquility. We sit outside almost every night, just sitting chatting, and that to me is so important. Just to be able to enjoy the experience, enjoy the interaction, enjoy living. And then I go off and do these stupid things like racing, crashing, hair on fire, adrenaline rush. But that's life. That's enjoying life. Yeah.
So let's reflect. So at the beginning, I asked you about money and success, and for me as well, when I was younger, I combined those. I thought, you know, money was success. It was a good measure of how you measure your life and how you're progressing. Now you've been through this, and now you're at the other side.
Yeah.
How do you measure? It's different, isn't it?
Cool.
Completely. I bet the money just isn't even. I don't know if it's there. What's your thinking now about money, success, happiness?
Well, let's be honest. Money's still important only insofar as we've got to live. We have to pay for food. We've got to pay for energy. We have to pay for, we've got to pay for food, mortgage, etc., etc. So I still have to earn money. So there's no taking that away. So you can't be reckless and say, well, money's not important, because it is important. It's just not the important thing in life. It's just something you have to do in order to live. I don't really give a stuff about money. I don't care whether I earn £1 million or 10,000 quid. I don't care. I really don't care. As long as I can get to enjoy the things in life that I want to, which is being with my family, experiencing time with my family, having them have fun, doing my racing, just, somehow not being a bad person. I want my kids and everybody around me to grow up, to live their lives being decent people. That's what's important, and enjoying your life while you can. So yes, everything I teach my kids, I'm always saying to my kids, don't focus on money. Don't find a career that will earn you money. Find a career that you are passionate about. Find something in life that you are passionate about, you will enjoy. The money will come. Just do what you will enjoy doing, because you're going to have to spend the rest of your life doing it. Do something you enjoy.
I'm going to take a quote from you. I'm going to try and read it because I can't read my own handwriting. So this is going to be my challenge. Life is too short. Enjoy every day. Be kind. Do stupid things. Stop worrying about what people think. Stop thinking money is the answer to everything. Money does not make you happy. You have to be happy to enjoy money.
Spot on. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly it. That's half the battle. I was suckered into money will make you happy mindset, and it doesn't at all. You've got to be happy in yourself. If you're happy in yourself and you're happy with who you are, then you can enjoy whatever comes your way. If money happens to come your way, great. If not, doesn't matter, as long as you're happy in yourself. And it doesn't matter whether you earn 20 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, it doesn't matter. You've got to be happy in yourself, because things will happen in and around you. There's something else I completely believe in. There's another quote by a Scottish explorer called William H. Murray, which I love, and I quote this to my kids all the time and to anybody that will listen, because this really is, the heart of success, whether it's about something you want to do in life or work or whatever. And he talks about commitment. So until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. And it goes on, and ultimately what he says is, until one is committed, nothing's going to happen. You'll just procrastinate, things won't happen. When you definitely commit yourself, magic happens. All kinds of things happen that will come your way. And it's amazing that even things like committing to motor racing, committing to doing my job properly, committing to, right, I'm making a commitment, I am going to do this, get on with it. And mentally making that commitment, suddenly things happen. So, I know, for example, so I have a pro racing driver that coaches me. I know quite a number of pro racing drivers now, and I won't share who they are, but there are, once you're in the racing fraternity, you get to know people and you get involved, and to be coached by someone who's a pro racing driver that's quite high profile is fantastic. I never would have known, never would have understood, never would have believed that was even possible. And this chap's just a really, really nice, down-to-earth guy, lovely chap, genius driver. In my work, committing to do my job well, having committed, right, this is what I'm going to do with. So when I went back to work after my injury, I was asked to do an internal kind of manage the relationship between one part of HP and another part of HP, and I just committed to doing that really, really well. When you get on and do things happen. I was then invited to become part of the management training program within HP, the management fast track. So things like that, you go, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. When I started talking about even becoming a racing driver in the first place, there was a lady at work who said, oh, my nephew's a racing driver, pro racing driver. I'll set you up to lunch with him. Wow. So when you commit to something, all manner of things happen. So I'm now, I won't share too much. There are a couple of other things happening in my life that I would never have expected, because I've reached out to somebody. I hate that phrase, reach out, was so American. I've got in contact with somebody who I knew from a few years ago, got introduced to this chap, and he is ex-army, runs an organisation that does good for, or ex-military personnel. And he's now in a position in Motorsport UK. And I reached out to him because I want to get involved. I want to do something to help when it comes to disability within motorsports. And I had this idea of wanting to get involved. And then I realised he's now involved in it. Like, oh my goodness. So we're now having conversations about how I can get involved and help, volunteer, because it's dear to my heart. Because interestingly, seeing the challenges that people with disability in motorsport have, it's not just being able to drive the car. It's when you go to a circuit, going to have a shower. Shower blocks aren't set up for disabled people. Just little things like that. Cleanliness, hygiene. When you're at a racetrack, you want to be able to wash yourself properly after being all day in a sweaty race suit. They're not geared up for that. Well, okay, these are little things that don't get thought about that really need to be. And it puts people off. It means that racing isn't as accessible to disabled people as it should be for things that you don't actually think about. So so to be able to make a commitment to something, suddenly stuff happens. You get to know people, and someone connects you with this person and someone connects you with that person. You go, oh my God, all these things happen. It is magic. It's absolute magic. So commitment to something really yields results. So I fervently believe that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure. It feels like it's been a real honour to sit with you, chat with you through what's obviously been quite an emotional journey for you, physically, mentally, for your family. It's been really incredible. When you reflect and you kind of look back at everything that's happened, what do you feel about everything, and how do you internalise it?
Lucky, unbelievably lucky. Someone up there is looking after me. Someone has given me a chance of realising a good life. So, yeah, just lucky.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. I wish you well with your racing. I wish you well with your family. And I wish you, of course, well with your career.
Thank you, Simon. It's been a lovely pleasure being here as well. Thank you.